If you are an avid reader of physical books and you don't know about book darts, you should. If you read books, but it's all online, or you don't really care for books that much and you never find yourself going to your bookshelf and opening books that you've read before, you don't want this product. But if you do have, upon moving into a home, insist that one of the first things that needs to happen is that we need to install lines and lines of bookshelves, as we did here, then this is an amazing thing. So book darts are little tiny markers that made of metal that are better than inking up your book, better than bookmarks, better than Post-it flags. They stick, but they aren't permanent. They don't deform the book, no matter how many are in there. So I have this pile, which, because Zach has zoomed down on me, you can't see, but I have this pile of books. I just pulled 5 books off of our shelves that I know that I had read or reread recently enough to have book darted. And so this one, which we will probably spend a whole episode talking about at some point, Anatomy of an Epidemic. I don't know if you can see just how many book darts are inside that by the little glimmers, but the book is not deformed by it. And any time that I pick up a book that I've read, I open it to any one of book darts and I see not just something of value from the book, but something about my state of mind when I was reading it, what caught my eye. And it's sort of it's a kind of memory hack, I find, and a way to reinsert myself into long pieces of text, either fiction or nonfiction, that I've enjoyed before, but might be unlikely to pick up and read from scratch again. So I have several of these tins around the house. Brett can attest to that. And I think you're now so accustomed to the telltale sound of the tin being opened that sometime if I'm reading it in bed at night, you'll hear that and go find something to book dart, honey. Right. So I literally pulled 5 books that I respect off the shelf and opened them to one of the book darted places. I'm just going to read you a sentence or two from each of these book darted places, which also will reveal 5 books that I think are terrific. I don't actually have I did not decide an order in advance. So we'll start with Anatomy of an Epidemic by Robert Whitaker. Extraordinary and terrifying book. Just one line in this. He says, with regard to a presenter at an APA audience, I conclude that patients with schizophrenia not on antipsychotic medication for a long period of time have significantly better global functioning than those on antipsychotics. That alone is worth the price of admission to this book when you see that there are data to support the idea that antipsychotics are likely doing more harm than good. So that's one. We have, actually I'll do the fiction last. We have Margaret Mead, Sex and Temperament in 3 Primitive Societies. Actually, introduction by Helen Fisher, who we know. So this is originally written in 1935, and just from the introduction, one of the things I book darted, is 2 of these tribes have no idea that men and women are different in temperament. They allow them different economic and religious roles, different skills, different vulnerabilities to evil magic and supernatural influences. The Arapesh believe that painting in color is appropriate only to men, and the Mandugamor consider fishing an essentially feminine task. But any idea that temperamental traits of the order of dominance, bravery, aggressiveness, objectivity, malleability are inalienably associated with one sex as opposed to the other is entirely lacking. This may seem strange to a civilization which in its sociology, its medicine, its slang, its poetry, and its obscenity accepts the socially defined differences between the sexes as having an innate basis. She goes on. So fascinating little bit of cultural anthropology there from Margaret Mead from the early part of the 20th century. We have Alice Drager's excellent book, Galileo's Middle Finger, Heretics, Activists, and the Search for Justice in Science, in which, among many other revelations, and this is published, this is probably going to be 2016, 2015. You gave this to me probably 2017. You, Brett. So this is from chapter 5, The Rot from Within. That didn't mean that these scientists, or I, or anyone else existed without bias. It didn't mean their work wasn't shaped and sometimes tainted by politics, ideologies, and loyalties. But it did mean they tried to adhere to an intellectual agenda that wasn't first and only political. If they believed that good science couldn't be done by just Ouija boarding your answers, good scholarship had to put the search for truth first and the quest for social justice second. That's Draeger a while ago.
A while ago.
I
got you that before we met her. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Before Evergreen blew up.
Yeah, back in the before times.
Another kind of before times.
Yep.
This excellent novel, Mating, by Norman Rush, which was actually, I see from the inscription, given to me as a gift by Elizabeth Roit when we were all on Barrow, Colorado Island together, when she was writing a book that largely starred you, Tapir's Morning Bath.
Tapir's Morning Bath.
Yeah. So she gave me this book thinking I would enjoy it, and it's really extraordinary. And here's a slight paragraph from it. The author here is speaking about his protagonist. One thing wrong with America, according to Danoon, is that the society is converging to suppress unsupervised mass play, largely through the mechanisms of TV and adult-run sports like Little League. His theory was that if you leave young males alone, they will go and play situations from fascism to feudalism to democracy. So now there is a diffuse and thwarted attraction to fascism, that is getting played out at the adult level. He was fecund with theories. And one more, just again to point out how rich the leaving behind a trail of book darts can be in terms of finding evidence of great thinking in the books on yourself. This is from a novel, another excellent novel called The Overstory by Powers that just came out a year or two ago, I think. And this about one of the protagonists, again, the clarity of recent weeks, the sudden waking from sleepwalk, his certainty that the world has been stolen and the atmosphere trashed for the shortest of short-term gains, the sense that he must do all he can to fight for the living world's most wondrous creatures. All these abandon Adam, and he's left in the insanity of denying the bedrock of human existence. Property and mastery, nothing else counts. Earth will be monetized until all trees grow in straight lines. 3 people own all 7 continents, and every large organism is bred to be slaughtered.
You did all that with book darts, huh?
Yeah, I did all that with book darts. Yeah. So that's my pitch for book darts.
Yeah, it's kind of marvelous because the fact that they do not physically alter the book in a permanent way, but do physically live in the book in a way that it's easier to find than if you've written something. I've never been a fan of this. If you don't write in your books, you're a faker kind of a mentality. For one thing, I would never write in a book because I wouldn't be able to read it later, right? So what good would it do me? Right. And B, it just feels like defacing something. And maybe if one had marvelous penmanship, it would be different. But
yeah, and so one thing I do when I'm just taking a book out to the world, and if I don't have a bag with me, and so I don't also have a tin of book darts, is I line the last page of the book with just a line of book darts, so that if I do come upon something that I want to remember for later, I can pull it off the back page and put it where it goes.
Totally. And if you do find yourself out and you don't have them, you can go into any 7-Eleven and you can ask the person behind the counter and get a quizzical look for free.
For free. Quizzical looks for free at almost at any 7-Eleven near you, I expect.
Yes, any at your local 7, or you can drive across the state to a different 7-Eleven
if you want
for variety.
Sure.